Ambassador James Chen couldn't help but smirk as he stood before the massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers. He'd practiced his poker face for weeks, but something about the absurdity of the situation made his lips twitch. Here he was, a guy who just 5 years ago had been arguing about coffee machine protocols in the UN break room, about to tell the most powerful governing body in the known universe to stick their offer where the sun doesn't shine. The doors, because apparently every advanced civilization still had a flair for the dramatic, slowly creaked open with a pneumatic hiss. The chamber beyond was a masterpiece of architectural showing off, sweeping crystalline arches that caught and reflected the light from 3 artificial suns, creating an aurora that would have been breathtaking if it wasn't so obviously designed to make visitors feel small and insignificant. "Nice light show," Chen muttered under his breath. "Bet their energy bill is astronomical." The chamber housed representatives from over 200 species, arranged in ascending rings like some alien version of a corporate amphitheater. Chen's enhanced eyes, courtesy of Earth's primitive medical technology, picked out details that would have had xenobiologists back home drooling. There were beings that seemed to be made entirely of crystalline structures, others that appeared to be sentient gas clouds contained in environmental suits, and one that looked suspiciously like a very angry ficus. The Morex, with their feline features and perpetual expression of having just smelled something unpleasant, occupied the highest tier. Next to them sat the Zox V, whose silicon-based biology made them look like animated geodes with too many eyes. The Praxi, everyone's least favorite bureaucrats, shuffled their tentacles nervously in the middle section, probably calculating how this meeting would affect their profit margins. "Ambassador James Chen of Earth," announced a mechanized voice that somehow managed to sound both bored and condescending. "Representative of classification, Deathworld. Threat assessment pending, status probationary." "Love the intro," Chen said, loud enough for the nearest delegates to hear. "Really captures my essence." A few of the younger species representatives quickly covered their audio reception organs, apparently scandalized by such casual disrespect. The chamber's atmosphere was thick with tension, and not just because several species required different atmospheric compositions to breathe. It had been just 18 months since first contact, when a Praxi mining vessel had quite literally bumped into one of Earth's deep space probes. The resulting diplomatic chaos had been equal parts terrifying and hilarious. Chen still remembered the Praxi ambassador's face, or what passed for a face, when they realized their first contact package had been automatically translated by an Earth AI in under 3 minutes. They'd spent decades developing that encryption, and humanity's primitive computers had cracked it while the coffee was still hot. High Councillor Zixavax, a being who resembled nothing so much as a very important jellyfish wearing a very expensive toga, floated down to the speaker's podium. The bioluminescent patterns rippling through their transparent body indicated what Chen's cultural briefing had taught him was either extreme anxiety or indigestion. Given what he was about to tell them, probably both. "Ambassador Chen," Zixavax's translator produced a voice like honey poured over gravel. "You stand before the Galactic Council as a representative of your unique world. We have reviewed your species application for protected status with great interest." Chen smiled. It was the same smile his grandmother had worn when his grandfather insisted he could fix the quantum router himself. The kind of smile that said, "Oh, honey, you have no idea what's coming." The council chambers fell silent, waiting for the humans' response. They expected gratitude, perhaps even groveling. After all, Earth was just another death world that needed their protection, right? Chen straightened his tie, an ancient Earth power move that was completely lost on the assembled aliens, and prepared to ruin everyone's day in the most diplomatic way possible. High Councillor Zixavax's bioluminescent patterns shifted to what their species considered a magnanimous display, though to Chen it looked more like a lava lamp having an existential crisis. "The Galactic Council," Zixavax began, their translated voice dripping with artificial warmth, "has carefully considered Earth's unique situation. As a Deathworld species, you face many challenges that more evolved civilizations have long since overcome." Chen kept his face carefully neutral, though he could feel his molars grinding. The Council's massive holographic display activated, showing a surprisingly inaccurate rendering of Earth's solar system. At least they'd finally stopped drawing Earth as flat. "Our protection agreement is most generous," a Marex representative purred from the upper tier, their cat-like features arranged in what they probably thought was a benevolent expression. "We propose to station a defensive fleet in your system, purely for your protection, of course." "Of course," Chen echoed, his tone dry enough to turn the council chamber's carefully regulated humidity into a desert. Zixavax rippled appreciatively, completely missing the sarcasm. "The terms are quite simple. Earth will be granted Class C protected status. You'll be permitted to maintain a minimal defense force for internal security. All advanced weapons research will be supervised by council advisors. Your industrial output will be regulated to ensure environmental compliance, and all extraplanetary trade will be conducted through council-approved intermediaries." "For a modest administrative fee," added a Praxi representative, their tentacles writhing with barely contained greed. "How modest?" Chen asked, raising an eyebrow. "A mere 40% of all external trade revenue," the Praxi answered, as if they were offering the deal of the century, "plus standard resource allocation fees, technology licensing charges, and environmental impact assessments." Chen made a show of taking notes on his primitive tablet, watching with amusement as several council members flinched at the archaic technology. They had no idea the device contained more computing power than their entire chamber's systems combined. "In return," Zixavax continued, their patterns now showing what Chen recognized as smug satisfaction, "you'll receive access to carefully curated galactic technology. Nothing too advanced, of course. We wouldn't want to overwhelm your species. We'll start with basic agricultural improvements, perhaps some rudimentary medical technology." A Zoxavi representative chimed in, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns of superiority. "We've had great success with this approach on other Deathworlds. The Krith, for example, barely destroy anything anymore." "That's because they can barely build anything anymore," Chen muttered under his breath, having read the classified reports on what happened to the Krith. Once a promising industrial species, they now spent most of their time making trinkets for tourist shops. Zixavax floated closer, their translucent form now towering over Chen in what was probably supposed to be an intimidating display. "Furthermore, we'll need immediate access to your nuclear facilities, antimatter research, and any other potentially dangerous technologies, for safety reasons, naturally." "Naturally," Chen replied, his smile never wavering. "And our AI research?" The chamber went so quiet you could have heard a Praxi's wallet drop. Zixavax's bioluminescence flickered in what could only be described as panic. "AI research?" they managed to translate, their patterns now a chaos of alarmed colors. "Surely a species at your development level hasn't—" "Just asking," Chen said innocently, enjoying the ripple of unease that spread through the chamber. "Please, continue with the terms." Zixavax took a moment to compose themselves, their patterns settling into a more authoritative display. "The agreement is standard for species of your classification. You'll be granted observer status in council meetings, with the possibility of upgraded status in a few centuries, assuming satisfactory compliance." "How generous," Chen said, his voice carrying just enough edge to make several junior representatives shift uncomfortably in their environmental suits. "It is generous," Zixavax snapped, their translator failing to completely mask their irritation. "Many species would be grateful for such an opportunity. The alternative is isolation, no support, no protection, no access to galactic markets. Surely you understand the implications." The threat wasn't subtle, but then again, subtlety wasn't high on the list of prerequisites for council membership. Chen looked up from his tablet, meeting Zixavax's cluster of sensory organs with a steady gaze. "Oh, I understand perfectly," he said, and for the first time his smile reached his eyes. "Would you like to hear our response now?" Chen allowed himself a moment of reflection as he watched the council members shift impatiently in their seats. He thought back to the briefing just 3 days ago in the underground command center beneath Geneva that officially didn't exist. "Make them sweat a little," General Rodriguez had said, her weathered face creasing with amusement. "Let them think they've got us cornered before you drop the hammer." And the classified briefing room had been packed with Earth's highest-ranking military and scientific leaders. Holographic displays had shown real-time tracking of every Council vessel within 50 light-years of Earth, all without using their precious approved technology. Chen remembered Dr. Zhang's presentation, the quantum physicist barely containing her glee as she explained Earth's technological achievements. "Their FTL drives are hilariously inefficient," she'd said, pulling up comparative diagrams. "They're still using artificial gravity wells for propulsion. We cracked vacuum energy manipulation 5 years ago." The truth was, humanity had been busy. While the Council species had spent millennia playing political games and enforcing their technological hierarchies, Earth had been solving problems the hard way. There's nothing quite like evolving on a death world to spark innovation. Their biggest weakness, Admiral Patel had pointed out, is their complete dependence on specialized worlds. Manufacturing here, agriculture there, mining somewhere else. One disruption in their supply chain and their whole house of cards comes tumbling down. Earth, on the other hand, had been forced to develop everything locally. Every technology, every advancement, had to work in Earth's brutal gravity and harsh conditions. The result? Systems and devices that were far more robust and adaptable than anything the Council had developed in their carefully controlled environments. Chen glanced down at his primitive tablet. Inside its unassuming case was a quantum computer more powerful than anything the Council had. The neural interface behind his left ear, invisible to standard Council scans, was feeding him real-time analysis of every species' biological responses in the chamber. Even their secure communications were an open book to Earth's AI systems. The Council had no idea that their own defense networks had been comprehensively mapped by Earth's probe grid within months of first contact. They didn't know about the nanotech factories hidden in Earth's asteroid belt, or the quantum entanglement communication network that made their subspace channels look like tin cans on a string. They certainly didn't know about Project Phoenix, the emergency evacuation system that could relocate Earth's entire population through artificial wormholes if necessary. Because when you evolve on a death world, you learn to plan for the worst. "Remember," the President had told him in their final meeting, "we're not looking for war. But we're not accepting charity from people who think we're primitives either." Chen's enhanced vision caught Zixavax's bioluminescent patterns shifting through frequencies that indicated growing impatience. The High Counselor probably thought they were being generous, offering to protect Earth from the dangers of the galaxy. They had no idea that humanity had already developed defenses against every known weapon in the Council's arsenal. The same drive that had taken humans from stone tools to spaceflight in a handful of millennia hadn't slowed down one bit. "Let them realize slowly," his psychological advisor had suggested. "The shock will be more effective if they figure it out themselves." Chen straightened up, ready to begin his presentation. He thought about the fleet of stealth ships currently positioned throughout Council space, the quantum AI networks monitoring every transmission, and the revolutionary technologies Earth was preparing to patent across multiple sectors. The Council thought they were offering protection to a primitive death world species. They were about to learn that humanity had outgrown the need for protection long ago. Chen cleared his throat, drawing the Council's attention. "Esteemed members of the Council," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "Earth has prepared a brief presentation of our own." "Before I begin," Chen said, pulling out what appeared to be an antiquated data chip, "I should mention that we've taken the liberty of upgrading your holographic systems. Hope you don't mind." Before any Council member could object, the chamber's display system suddenly activated with clarity that made several species' visual organs dilate in surprise. The resolution was so perfect that some representatives instinctively tried to dodge the apparently solid objects appearing before them. "What you're experiencing," Chen explained casually, as if he wasn't watching several million credits worth of Council technology being casually superseded, "is quantum-enhanced holographic projection, a little side project from our entertainment division." Zixavax's patterns flashed in alarm. "You can't possibly have—" Modified your systems without permission, Chen finished. Oh, but we did. About 6 months ago, actually. Don't worry, we left detailed maintenance instructions with your AI. Oh, wait. He snapped his fingers in mock realization. You don't have those, do you? The chamber erupted in shocked whispers as the display shifted to show Earth's solar system. Not the simplified version the Council used, but the real one, complete with its complex network of automated defense systems, manufacturing facilities, and quantum communication relays. Let's start with something simple, Chen said, expanding the view to show a massive structure in Earth's orbit. This is one of our solar collection arrays. Nothing special, just a little something we built to handle our energy needs. Current output is, he checked his tablet, roughly equivalent to the entire energy consumption of sectors 1 through 4 of Council space combined. A Murex representative stood up, fur bristling. Impossible. Such technology would require efficient energy conversion and storage? Chen interrupted. Funny story about that. Turns out when you evolve on a death world, you get really good at not wasting resources. Speaking of which, the display shifted to show what appeared to be a standard Council military vessel. This is one of your latest patrol ships. Impressive design, really. We especially like the photon cannons. The image split, showing a comparison. This is what we came up with last year. Notice anything different? The Council certainly did. The human vessel was smaller, sleeker, and bristling with technology that shouldn't have been possible for a primitive species. Our version uses about 1/10 the energy, has tripled the firepower, and comes with a pretty decent coffee maker. Chen added, We found your designs in a public database. Hope you don't mind that we made a few improvements. Zixavax was now displaying patterns that the translator couldn't even interpret. This is a violation of Council law. Chen raised an eyebrow. Actually, we checked. There's nothing in your regulations about improving on publicly available technology. We had our lawyers look very carefully at that. All 12,000 pages of your technology sharing protocols. The display shifted again, this time showing a series of planetary defense systems that made several military representatives sink lower in their seats. These are currently deployed throughout our system. Fully automated, self-repairing, and capable of targeting any threat with precision that, frankly, makes your targeting systems look like throwing rocks with a blindfold on. But the real pride of our military, Chen continued, enjoying the growing panic in the chamber, is something we call the Guardian Network. The display showed a vast web of interconnected satellites and stations. Quantum-entangled communication, zero lag time, controlled by an AI that makes your best computers look like pocket calculators. And before anyone gets nervous, yes, we solved the AI control problem. Turns out ethics wasn't as hard as everyone thought when you don't start with the assumption that other species are inferior. Apraxi representatives' tentacles had tied themselves in actual knots. The cost of developing such systems was surprisingly reasonable, Chen interjected. When you don't have to pay Council certification fees or use Council-approved contractors or follow Council efficiency guidelines that are 3 centuries out of date, you'd be amazed what you can accomplish. The display shifted one final time, showing a map of known space. Dozens of points lit up, showing human stealth ships and monitoring stations. Oh, and we hope you don't mind that we've been keeping an eye on things. Purely for research purposes, of course. We were particularly interested in what happened to the Krith, and the Vex, and all those other Deathworld species you so generously offered to protect. The chamber had gone deathly quiet. Even Zixavax's bioluminescence had dimmed to a shocked pale glow. Now, Chen said, his voice carrying clearly through the silence, let's talk about what actual cooperation between species might look like. Because Earth isn't interested in becoming another one of your protected worlds. We're not looking for handouts, and we're certainly not looking for permission to develop technology we already have. He gestured, and the display showed trade routes, scientific cooperation initiatives, and joint defense proposals. We're offering something different, real partnership, equal exchange of ideas, and before anyone asks, yes, we can enforce that equality. The display shut down, returning to its normal state, though everyone in the chamber knew it would never be the same again. Chen smiled, the kind of smile that suggested he had barely started. "That was the short version of our presentation," he said cheerfully. "I have about 600 terabytes of additional technical documentation, if anyone's interested. Now, who would like to discuss a real partnership agreement?" The council chamber remained silent, hundreds of alien species trying to process how thoroughly they had misread the situation. Chen waited patiently, knowing that sometimes the best part of making a point was letting others absorb just how badly they had miscalculated. Chen pulled up another file on his tablet, watching as several council members visibly flinched. He almost felt bad. Almost. "Now that we've covered Earth's capabilities, let's discuss something more interesting," he said, his voice carrying a sharp edge. "Like what happened to the last 23 Deathworld species you so generously offered to protect." The holographic display flickered to life again, showing a graveyard of worlds, once thriving civilizations reduced to tourist attractions and resource extraction sites. "The Krith," Chen began, zooming in on a rust-colored planet. "Brilliant engineers developed plasma containment technology that was centuries ahead of their time. Then the council generously offered protection, and now they sell trinkets to tourists. Funny how their research facilities all burned down in that mysterious accident 50 years ago." Zixavax's patterns flashed defensively. Those incidents were thoroughly investigated by council investigators, using council protocols, reaching council-approved conclusions, Chen finished. "Yes, we read those reports. We also found the original data. Amazing what you can discover when you have quantum computers analyzing supposedly corrupted files." The display shifted to another world, this one a gas giant's moon. The Vex, remarkable biotechnology. They were close to cracking cellular regeneration, but then they signed your protection agreement, and suddenly all their research violated council safety protocols. Now they're growing council-approved crops with council-approved methods, making just enough to pay their council protection fees. A MREX representative stood up, fur bristling. "You're distorting the facts." "Actually," Chen cut in, "I'm summarizing. The full analysis runs to about 12,000 pages. Would anyone like to see the profit margins the council made from redistributing Vex biotech patents? No? Let's move on then." The display showed a complex web of financial transactions, resource movements, and policy decisions. "This is what we call the Protection Racket Protocol. Protection Agreement Protocol. Step 1. Find developing species with valuable technology or resources. Step 2. Offer protection they don't need from threats that don't exist. Step 3. Regulate them into submission through safety protocols, environmental guidelines, and administrative fees." The chamber had grown so quiet you could hear the environmental suits humming. Chen continued, his voice now cold and precise. "Here's what happens to most protected species economies within 5 years of signing your agreement." A graph appeared, showing a steep decline in independent technological development. "And here's what happens to council-affiliated corporations in the same sectors." A contrasting graph showed skyrocketing profits. "But my personal favorite," Chen said, pulling up another file, "is your contingency plans for Earth. These were particularly interesting reading." Zixavax's patterns turned almost strobing. "Those files are classified." "Were classified," Chen corrected. "Amazing how easy encryption is to break when you don't assume machines can't think. Your plans were quite thorough: gradual technology restrictions, strategic resource agreements, careful regulation of our development, all designed to turn Earth into another dependent world within 50 years. He pulled up more documents, letting them float in the air like accusatory ghosts. "You even had plans for handling potential resistance, engineered economic crises, manufactured environmental emergencies, and if all else failed, the tried-and-true method of staging a convenient accident with our sun's containment field research." The Praxi representatives' tentacles had gone completely still, a sure sign of panic in their species. "These allegations are supported by approximately 18 zettabytes of documented evidence," Chen finished, "including some very interesting personal communications between council members about resource rights in the Sol system. The bidding was quite competitive, I must say. He zoomed in on one particular document that made several representatives suddenly find the ceiling fascinating. I particularly enjoyed the discussion about how to divide up Earth's water resources. Very thorough planning. Though you might want to update your estimates, we actually have more oceans than you thought. We just keep them hidden better. The tension in the chamber had become almost solid enough to walk on. Several junior representatives were trying to discreetly access their private communication devices, only to find them mysteriously unresponsive. "Oh, don't worry about your communications," Chen said pleasantly. "They're working fine. We're just routing them through our systems first. Standard security protocol, you understand. We learned it from reading your manuals on information control during protection agreements." He closed his tablet with a decisive click. "So, let's be clear. We know about the resource grabs disguised as environmental protocols. We know about the technology suppression hidden behind safety regulations. We know about the strategic weakening of protected species' military capabilities. And most importantly..." Chen leaned forward, his smile now showing teeth. "We know about the 7 other Deathworld species currently considering your protection agreements. In fact, we've already shared this presentation with them. They send their regards, by the way. Well, most of them. Some were too busy cancelling their council appointments." Chen pulled out a second data chip, this one glowing with a subtle blue light. "Now that we've cleared the air, let's discuss Earth's terms." "Your terms?" Zixvax's translator crackled with barely contained indignation. "Yes, our terms. Do try to keep up," Chen replied, inserting the chip. The holographic display shifted to show a complex network of trade routes and technological exchange protocols. "Earth proposes the formation of the Independent Worlds Coalition." The display highlighted several systems that made multiple council members shift uncomfortably. "We've already established preliminary agreements with the Drachnid Empire, the Solarian Collective, and yes, 3 of your former protected species who recently bought out their protection contracts." A shocked murmur ran through the chamber. The Drachnid Empire had been a thorn in the Council's side for centuries, refusing to join while maintaining significant technological superiority in several sectors. "Our proposition is simple," Chen continued. "Open trade. Real technological exchange. No administrative fees, no resource quotas, no development restrictions. Just straight-up collaboration between species who respect each other's sovereignty." The display showed a series of technological innovations. "Earth is prepared to share our advances in quantum computing, energy production, and FTL travel. In return, we want unrestricted access to Council trade routes and the immediate cancellation of all predatory protection agreements." "You can't possibly expect," a Marex representative began. "We already have the support of 32 independent trading worlds," Chen interrupted. "Combined with Earth's production capabilities and the Drachnid's existing infrastructure, we can establish a completely independent trading network within 2 years. Your choice is whether you want to be part of it or compete with it." The display shifted to show Earth's strategic positions throughout known space. "We've established manufacturing bases in 17 systems, research facilities in 12 others, and our quantum communication network already covers 60% of inhabited space, all built quietly while you thought we were just a primitive Deathworld species trying to figure out basic space flight." Chen smiled as the implications sank in. "We're not asking for permission, we're extending an invitation. Earth and our allies are going to reshape galactic trade whether the Council approves or not. The only question is whether you want to adapt or become obsolete." The display showed projected economic growth charts that made several Praxi representatives' tentacles curl in envy. "Our model eliminates 90% of current administrative overhead, reduces transport costs by 60% through improved FTL technology, and opens up new markets that your protection agreements have been suppressing for centuries." "This is unprecedented," Zixvax protested, their patterns showing clear distress. "No," Chen corrected. "This is inevitable. Earth is offering the Council a chance to be part of the future, instead of becoming a footnote in it. We've already proven we can bypass your security. improve your technology, and outmaneuver your economic controls. Now we're offering to work with you instead of around you." He gestured at the display, which showed the proposed structure of the new coalition. Equal representation, shared technological advancement, free trade with reasonable oversight, and most importantly, no more treating developing worlds like resources to be exploited. The chamber had grown thoughtfully quiet, the kind of quiet that comes when people, or aliens, realize they're witnessing a fundamental shift in power. "The choice is yours," Chen concluded. "But I should mention, the Drachnid Empire is expecting my call in about 10 minutes to finalize our agreements. I'd hate to have to tell them the Council wasn't interested in being part of the future." High Councillor Zixavax rose to their full height, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with barely contained rage. The chamber's gravity field fluctuated slightly as they channeled energy through their environmental field. A classic Council intimidation tactic. "You dare threaten this Council?" Their translator crackled with artificial menace. "We have maintained peace and order for 10,000 years. Hundreds of species prosper under our protection. We will not be blackmailed by a Deathworld species that barely learned to split atoms a century ago." Chen checked his watch, an archaic gesture that made several council members wince. "First, this isn't a threat. It's a weather report. Second, your gravity display is cute, but you might want to dial it back before you blow your environmental field generators. And third," he pressed a button on his tablet. Suddenly, communication channels throughout the chamber burst to life. On every screen, representatives from 24 independent worlds appeared, watching the proceedings with obvious amusement. "Hope you don't mind. I invited some friends to watch," Chen said cheerfully. "The Drachnid Emperor sends his regards. He would have called personally, but you know how it is. Busy running an empire that's about to become Earth's primary trading partner." "This is an outrage," a Mrex representative howled. "A violation of Council protocol." "Actually," one of the observers cut in, their translator identifying them as the Solarian High Commander, "it's a public council session. We checked your own bylaws. Any species with pending trade agreements can observe, and we all have pending agreements with Earth." Zixavax's patterns had shifted to a pale, sickly hue. "The Council will not be coerced." "Into what?" Chen asked innocently. "Fair trade, equal partnership, not exploiting developing species. You're right, that would be horrible." He turned to address the chamber at large. "By the way, the quantum encryption protocols we developed, already shared them with every independent world in the coalition. You might want to update your security." Apraxi representative's tentacles had tied themselves into what appeared to be an anxiety knot. "The economic implications are exactly why you're going to accept our terms," Chen finished. "Because right now, 7 major trading worlds are watching you decide whether to adapt or become irrelevant. The Drachnid Empire's markets alone could replace 40% of Council trade volume. Add Earth's manufacturing capabilities and the Solarian Collective's research facilities." He let the implications hang in the air like a suspended gravitational field. Zixavax made one final attempt. "The Council has measures in place for dealing with rogue elements." "You mean the automated defense network we reprogrammed 6 months ago?" Chen asked. "Or the economic sanctions we've already developed countermeasures for? Or perhaps you're referring to the secret fleet hiding behind the Proxima Nebula?" He checked his tablet, which, by the way, just had all its command codes reset to play something humans call "never gonna give you up" on all frequencies. The chamber erupted in a chaos of translations and exclamations. Chen stood calmly in the center, a small smile playing on his lips as he watched several council members hurriedly consulting their own data feeds and finding everything he'd said was true. "The vote is simple," Chen announced over the din. "Accept Earth's proposal for equal partnership and a new era of galactic trade, or watch as we and our allies create it without you. You have—" He checked his watch again. "About 3 minutes before I'm scheduled to finalize agreements with the independent worlds. No pressure." Zixavax's patterns had settled into what their species used to indicate resignation. Around the chamber, representatives were already signaling their support, realizing that the balance of power had shifted irreversibly. "Welcome to the future," Chen said, his grin widening. "Don't worry, we'll help you catch up.